all to take a minute and think about your childhood. Think back to a time whenever everyone told you, whatever you want to be, you can be. Anything is possible, you can do it. Do you know why they told you that? Because you had the opportunity to get an education. You lived in a country where education is available to everyone. Now imagine growing up in that same childhood where you didn't have the opportunity to do whatever you want and be whatever you wanted to be. That's the reality that a lot of children face in the world today. And so that's why I'd like to talk to you about Room to Read, an organization that sponsors global literacy and gender equality. I'll give you a brief history and overview, and then I'll tell you why it's important to donate to Room to Read. Room to Read was founded in 1998 in Nepal. It's actually founded by a Microsoft executive who went to Nepal and got really saddened by the fact that children wanted to learn to read, but they didn't have the opportunity and they didn't have the equipment that they needed to read. So he went back and he founded this organization. As stated in an article in USA Today in 2004, they strive for global education and gender equality, and then in 2004 they had their big milestone of opening their 1000th library. So they go around the world and they build libraries and schools for children, girls, so they can be educated and have equal education opportunities. So far they've benefited 7.8 million children, and they currently work in 10 countries, and they're looking to expand all the time. The impact they've had, you can see here, it's pretty enormous. 1,566 schools, 14,627 libraries, 723 books published. This means that they have written books in the country's native language, and then they themselves have published them. So they're not just giving out 723 books, there were millions more distributed of those copies. Those are just ones that they've written. Books distributed, they've distributed 12.1 million, and then girls educated. That's a really big thing for them, to educate women. So this is all found on their website, which was recently updated in 2011. So you may be wondering, well, why is that important? After all, I got an education, so why should I care if people around the world are not getting an education? The fact is that global education impacts all of us because we're all one world, and so what happens in another part of the world affects us here. So the reality is that according to the World Organization for Literacy, 769 million people are illiterate. But if we take that and we educate those people, 171 million of them will be lifted out of poverty. Meaning that if we just give them the opportunity, these people will create enormous things for our world and benefit us in the end. Now I'd like to show you the literacy rates across the world. 97% of Americans are literate or greater. It's actually closer to about 98% of Americans are literate. But as you can see in developing countries, that number is closer to 50% and in some less than 35%. We can no longer sit at 97% and not care about the people here in developing countries that are not being educated. Because we are all one world, we can no longer sit at the top of the map and believe that this is not our problem anymore. It is our ethical responsibility to take care of our own and to take care of these people in these developing countries. Now, women in the classroom, I'd like to ask you, how would you feel if you were denied an education because you're a woman? That's what's happening to 46% of girls in developing countries. They're not allowed an education. Men, I'd like you to think of your future daughters or your sisters or nieces or anybody like that. Imagine if they were denied an education, how that would feel. If we educate women, the mortality rate of infants will go down 5 to 10%. This is according to the website of Room to Read. Also, educated women will earn 20% more in their lifetime than their uneducated peers in developing countries. So you may be wondering about Room to Read's educational abilities and how they spend their money. So as you can see, 41.6 million in donations. That was in monetary donations last year. However, you can also donate in books, and this is where I got involved with Room to Read. My mom is an elementary school teacher with a doctorate in literacy, and so it was basically a really big deal for me growing up to learn how to read and be educated on how to let others read because of my mom's education. And so we have sent many books over from her classroom over to Room to Read and given many children the opportunity to have this. We would send her dissertation, but we want them to actually read, so we're not going to do that. As you can see, they raised $22 million outside of the United States as well, so other countries are helping. And then this is pretty outstanding. 84% of their money goes directly towards their education. So they have a very, very low overhead. Only 16 cents of what is used will go towards actual administration. And I can see some people kind of shaking their heads. That is extremely impressive. They won the National Charity Award, actually, for having such a low overhead. Only 3% of all charities will ever earn that award. So it's a very, very big deal for them to keep that low and to make sure that they're actually educating people. Now let's hear some stories from some of the participants. This is Dang. She's 18 years old, she's from Vietnam, and she would not have the opportunity to have an education had it not been for Room to Read. However, Room to Read gave her the opportunity, and she is now going to college for social work, just because she got the chance to be literate and educated. Another situation is Anita. She's 20 years old. She's from India, and she has the ability to become an educator now. She can change the lives of people just like people change lives for her. And she's 20 years old. That's the same age as me right now. That's the same age as probably some of you. So imagine if you grew up and you were denied an education, and then all of a sudden you had access to it. Wouldn't you take your education a little more seriously, and wouldn't you want to use it to benefit someone a little bit more? In all of my surveys that I distributed to the class, all of you said that you would be interested in helping world literacy. In fact, I got a lot of really good responses about that. So now I'm going to tell you how to help world literacy. $1 will buy one book. That's pretty incredible because you can send hundreds of books across the world for very little money. You can go to roomtoread.org to find out more about this, and you can also donate material. So if you have old books laying around, I'm not sure that you're probably reading Clifford still, so you may want to send it to a third world country and donate and really make a difference. I hope that today you're moved to donate towards global education, and that one day we can say that all kids will have their dreams achieved because we helped them. Thank you.